Cool. So yeah, I'll join you up here for a second and then drop down as well. Just to kick things off, this is part of the Prepare for VC Startup Oasis and community events we're running. Really excited to bring Leo Benkel here from Pure Lambda to discuss really the ins and outs of the CTO role, how it changes along the way, and share his insights and perspectives, whether you're a CTO yourself, a co-founder or founder, managing the technical team in your business. It's really important to learn these topics, understand, what you need to know, what your role should be, and how it continues to evolve along the way. So,
and if I may add, even also as a founder, what you need to look for when you try to hire one.
Exactly. Yeah, and we put on these events really to showcase the experts in our community and provide great resources and content for startup founders, CTOs, and everyone else that's working in the startup space. So excited to turn it over to Leo to share his presentation, and we'll also keep it open up the chat here too for any questions or introductions you guys want to give in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that along the way. So yeah, it's really great to have you here, Leo. I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Well, first of all, hello everyone. And if I'd like to ask where everybody is from, just to kick things in, and I want this talk to be like interactive, so we can like live an experience rather than just attend just a lecture. Also, I know that a lot of people usually that comes to this workshop also like to network. So if you plan on sharing your LinkedIn and everything, just do it now, so it's out of the way. I'm gonna put mine as well, so we can all connect. And like that, that's done, and now we can focus on the presentation. And if you have questions, I planned some like little break in between, so we can stop and like assess what we've talked about so far, and then address question at this moment. So we can do like by sections. I'm also closing the chat, so if there's like something important, I'm sure Jason will interrupt and let me know, so I have more real estate on my monitor. Cool. So I am Leo Benkel. I have a Master of Engineering. I've been writing code since I was very young, and I spent the last 10 years in Silicon Valley. I recently moved to Luxembourg, and I am the founder of Pure Lambda. I provide technical expertise to entrepreneurs to help them overcome challenges related to product development. So that can include hiring and onboarding processes, task management, software development strategies, and more. If you want to learn more, you can go to purelambda.com, and you can just open a tab for later on. Today, we're going to talk about time management as a CTO. My area of expertise is for software company. So that means that the company which have a product that is a software. It can be a SaaS, IoT, FinTech, MedTech, EduTech, like any of those. And so I don't know if your company is like more hardware, it might not apply, but usually the general rules can be transposed from one industry to another. But I just want to make clear that my expertise is more on software. If you have any question, let me know, and we can go off on random conversations. That can be fun for all of us. But so let's get started. So first of all, I'd like to talk about time, because time is a very important resource, and that's usually forgotten about. It's like we think that time is okay, and we can just get that going one day or another, and we'll figure it out. But let me remind you that time is a limited resource. We only have like 5,200 weeks to live. So if you look at this diagram here, each column is 1 year. The Y vertical axis is 52 weeks of a year. And I put here 100 columns, but keep in mind that in most countries, life expectancy is 70 to 80 years. So you can remove a bunch of columns on the right there. So let me just pause here so we can all like embrace this reality that we only have a few weeks to live. And when you count in weeks, it seems a small amount, and it's kind of scary. But that's how it is. That's what makes life beautiful, is that we need to take care of it. So try to focus during your work on something that matters to you. Like, don't get trapped in some places that you don't enjoy. That's the point of this diagram. Just to reinforce that, I looked online like a few good representation, and I really like this website that I found. It's called Wait But Why. I don't know what they do, but I found this diagram over there. I just wanted to give them credit. And here is really interesting to see like the deaths of several famous people, the average life expectancy, the retirement, the different career, different school. It's like different representation of time itself. And I think I'm a very visual person. Like, I like to see diagrams and imaging, and I think that's very important to me to see it that way. And so just like, you can take a screenshot and just like let it sink in. If you have anything that shocks you, put it in the chat. It can be interesting to exchange here. But yeah, that's our life. So if we zoom in a day, time is also as precious. Like, we need to sleep and eat and spend time with friends and family, as well as find time to work. So usually a normal human being needs to sleep between 7 and 8 hours, so that's already gone of the day. And so you need to eat, and you need to spend time with your family. So that leaves not a lot of time for work. And so you really want to make sure, sorry, I have diabetes type 1 and I need to manage my insulin intake. Little bridge here, but and so you need to like focus on like your work and optimize what you do during this work time so that it doesn't bleed into the rest of your life. And so today we're going to talk like, if you're a CTO, like, how do you optimize this time so that you really focus on what matters? It's not, this time management is not true for every company. And I like to separate this type of companies into several layers. So for me, in my opinion, there are like 3 big stages. Depending on what article or books you read, you might find different like differentiation, but for me, that's really like how I see it. So the stage 1 will be when you start all the way to product market fit. So it's like the beginning, you know, when you're like building prototype, trying to find users, the type of thing. Stage 2 is like the company is getting there. Sometimes it's called the scale up. You know, it's like when you already have like a big team and you're building things, and you know, it's getting there, and you might even have like raised funds already, this type of thing. And stage 3 is like, you know, the beyond, like the big Google and Twitters and all those big companies. So today we're going to talk about stage 1 and 2. I don't think we have many stage 3 CTOs in the meeting today. So we're going to focus on stage 1 and stage 2. I think it gives more value to the community here. In general, here's just like little points. Your focus as a CTO along the entire journey of your company is to focus on building a great product that satisfies your user. A company is built around solving a problem, and so you want to build the best solution to this problem. And by doing so, you want to make your employees, your customers happy, and make the world a better place. Just keep that in mind in everything you do. I think it's a good role. To me, it really matters to have ethical ways of working and to make the world a better place every day. So let's dive into stage 1. So a stage 1 look like, in terms of organization, you haven't reached product market fit yet, and you don't have enough team member to delegate a lot of what your roles is. So you have to take everything upon you to do. And there is a lot of time spent on raising funds if you do not bootstrap. So keep in mind that those statements are really general, and there are things that might or may not apply to your specific situation, but I'm trying to make something that works for most. And so you're gonna be pulled in fundraising meeting to explain the tech and the product. You're gonna have to take a lot on yourself to do because you don't have people to delegate to, and you are still in the quest to product market fit. In terms of tech, you should have a team about like 0 if it's just you as a CTO to like 20 makers. And when I say makers, it's designer, engineer, product manager, like all the people that build the product, the software. Too much to do, not enough time, because you probably have a gigantic to-do list of all the idea you want to try. So it's like a mixed bag. Your to-do list, your backlog should be a mixed bag of like user feedback, bugs, and lots of features to trying to get to product market fit. And in the next slide, we're going to dive into those quickly. And the dev cycle is quick. Like you change things very often. You might deploy a new product like every few days, every week. And you have a lot of moving parts. The code get deleted and replaced quickly. And you're also testing different technology. You might try one cloud service or another, and then still try to figure out what's the best stack to build the software you want to build to solve the problem you're getting to solve. Like I said, in the term of task prioritization, you want to prioritize it in this order at this stage usually. And obviously, there's like the expert exception, but you want to listen to your user feedback. That's the main things you do during this product market fit quest. Then you want to try new features, try to like attract new early adopters, and then the bug fixing. Why I put the bug fixing in last is because at this stage, a lot of things are changing really quickly. And so I don't think, in my opinion, it's worth working too much on one thing and trying to make it perfect, because most likely next week, you're going to replace it by something else in your prototyping phase. Might not always be true, but it's usually a better bet to focus on what your user tell you to focus on, rather than go off and don't release anything to fix the bugs of what you already have. Why those are important in this order? It's because in this quest to product market fit, you have an idea, you deploy a prototype, you acquire some user, you get feedback from them, and you iterate that way. And that will slowly get you to product market fit as you implement more things that your user want. So in this stage, the goal as CTO is to get to product market fit. How to get there? By listening to feedback from your user. How do you get feedback? By getting more users. And how do you get more? And to do all of that, you need to fuel that with funding. So if you don't bootstrap, that's why the funding is there. And that can also be focused on finding revenue. Like funding is like, how do you fuel the spaceship that is your company? So in terms of skills, as a CTO at this stage, you should be having development skill and technical knowledge. You're going to spend a lot of time writing code yourself, as even though it's like the CTO, you're going to be a software engineer as well. You're going to take a lot of hats along the hierarchy that it's usually several people in bigger companies. You're going to be the software engineer, the architect, the manager, and the CTO. You also need speed, because it's kind of a race to get to product market fit before your competition, or before you run out of money, or be the first to market. It's like all those competing factors that you need to overcome. Another important skill is flexibility and perseverance, because you're gonna spend maybe a week implementing a feature, and then you realize none of your user wants it. And you don't want to be disappointed, and you don't want to be attached to your code that you're gonna throw away because it didn't work. So you need to have like this capacity to be really quick in changing course, quick in evolving, quick thinking. So that's all under this kind of like skill line. And so to summarize all of that, like how do you spend your time? Most of your workday will be spending writing code with the other makers of your team. And usually the CTO might be a co-founder, like if you join early. And so you'll be the one building the core features that is making your product unique on the market. And the rest of your time will be shared between managing the rest of your team, assigning tasks, interviewing users, getting ideas, strategy. And the other slice of your time would be pitching your company to investors. And if you think of like a week, that will be probably 1 day of management, 1 day of pitching, and 3 days of coding. But that will be shuffled around. You might have like a morning where you have to go pitch your company, and then you write code this afternoon, and you have like maybe 2 hours every day of management. And so you realize here that the role of CTO in stage 1 is not that really like a CTO you have in your mind when you think of a CTO in like a bigger company. It's more of like a tech lead, a software architect, a software manager. And it can be really hard to grow from a stage 1 CTO to stage 2 CTO. So we're going to talk about stage 2 CTO in the next slides, but at the end, I reserved a section to talk about this transition period from stage 1 to stage 2. So this is the end of like the stage 1 block of this presentation. So I'm going to pause like a few seconds to know if you have any question, if you want to dive into stage 1 specifically, or if you prefer to continue to stage 2 and have all the questions at the end.
If this is at stage 2 or a question? Stage 2. Any other questions here?
Okay, I don't see any pop-up in the chat, so I'm gonna keep going. So for the stage 2, your organization looks a bit different now. So it's been maybe a few years, few months, depending on how quick you were. And now you probably have reached product market fit. You might even have raised Series A already. And your team is growing fast. You're in this exciting phase where everything is happening at the same time. You are trying to hire, you're trying to build new features. And so there's lots of jungling balls in the air. And to help you with all of that, you were also in the middle of implementing processes, and you might have some employees that resisted because they were already here in stage 1, and you're trying to push on them new roles. And now you can delegate, but because you just hired these people, you don't know yet if you can trust them. So there's a lot of things happening at the beginning of this stage 2. In terms of tech, you might have grown to like 50 people now. Even if you have hired an offshore team, you might have hundreds of makers. And so a lot of processes and pipeline needs to be implemented, not only for deployment, for automated testing, maybe data pipeline, maybe if you work with if your customers are big company, you might have security audits. And so you're trying to grow, add new features at the same time as automating a lot of things so you can limit your hiring expenses, because you could obviously hire a lot of people to run manual tests, but it's cheaper to automate them. But it's a lot of technical know-how. So that's kind of like what the stage 2 company look like. In terms of task prioritization, the user feedback might have fallen into second, because now you've reached product market fit, your revenue are growing, you're getting more user retention, and so you can focus on adding new features that will attract more users. Like from outside your early adopters bubble, you want to reach the rest of the market, and you can't do that by just listening to the user feedback, because you need a new category of user to full your funnel, and so that will make your new features come up higher in your priority. Bug fixes, they will be at the same as 2, like they should be equal with user feedback. And the thing is that now your team is much bigger. So maybe you have several teams, like you have one team per product or one team per features, and they will be able to do the bug fixings as well as the new features, while you as a CTO will listen to the user feedback and turn those user feedback into new features. So the distribution of tasks will change a little bit, change a lot in this stage. And so the goal of the CTO is also a lot different at this stage. Now you need to build foundation for growth, especially after the raise of funds. You want to make sure that you're not wasting this money by hiring too many people or not enough, or like you want to build foundations that it's scalable and sustainable for the future of the company. You want to focus not only on user acquisition, but now another important thing is user retention, because you've attracted a lot of users and you want them to stay and come back to use your product. And a new focus will come into play, which is employee acquisition and retention, because it costs a lot to hire and it's really hard to hire employees. And so you need to build a company, a culture and processes that help you with attract those employees. So what skills do you need now from stage 1 to stage 2? Now in stage 2, you don't need to write code as much. What you need is to be a leader and to motivate and empower your team and allow each members of your organization to become the best version of themselves. You also need delegation skills. You need to be able to know who you can trust to do the jobs that you used to do, and be able to trust them fully and empower them so that they can do this task instead of you doing it. And that would be hard to hire like the right people and trust them, especially if you grow from stage 1 to stage 2, you're gonna have to let go of some things that you owned. If you get hired into a stage 2 company right away, it's a different story, but the transition from stage 1 to stage 2 can be tricky. And the time management, because there's so many things going on right now, so time management is a skill in itself that you need to master. What do you do in the morning? What do you do in the afternoon? You need to leave time for lunch because you need to be fueled. You need to sleep well. You need to have time with your family while doing all of that. So time management and using the right productivity software, using the right tricks and tips to get through your day will be very important. So how is the time managed in this stage 2? So hiring and the strategy will be the two main things now. The hiring is important because since you're gonna have to delegate and let people implement new features and all those type of things, it starts by hiring. If you don't hire the right person, the downfall chain of operation will be terrible. I remember reading this report from Siemens, I think, during the pandemic, where they were explaining that if you can't trust your employees from working remotely, it's a hiring problem that you have. And it's kind of true for everything else. Like if you can't delegate, you have a hiring problem. If you can't trust your employees for implementing the features the way you want them to, you have a hiring problem. So hiring is everything. You can take example, for instance, from Zappos. I think that was a company. They implemented this system where if an employee wants to leave within the first month, they get $3,000. So that's kind of an interesting rule because that forces the hiring team to be really, really sharp, because if too many people slip the filters and get hired and then all those people leave, you're gonna lose a lot of money. And on the other hand, after this 1 month, you are sure that all the people that are staying are the people that really wants to work here. And I think they only have like 0.2% of the people that take this offer, so they're doing a really good job. You might have to maintain a little bit of code. That's why it's there. Maybe especially at the very beginning, you know, when you transition from stage 1 to stage 2, there's a lot of components that you might still own that you wrote, but you need to like transfer this knowledge. And that goes back to delegation. You need to be able to tell people and explain to them, okay, that's how it works. And now you are the owner of it and I'm not anymore. Pitching will still happen, but it might happen not as often because now you are in this growth phase. So maybe it's more the other way around now. Maybe investors will come to you because they want to invest and you're gonna have less of those meetings. And the strategy is where you will interview users. You will see, you know, what is the long-term strategy, like how is the road ahead of the company and what is going to happen. Okay, so anybody have any question on stage 2 before we go to the transition from stage 1 to stage 2?
I'll ask a question here.
Yeah.
So when you're, one of the big changes here is like, now you have more people, you know, more people you're managing, a bigger team, and you've done more of the hiring. So do you see that usually being like the CTO is the one that's bringing on all the engineers, or are they working with the rest of the management team and the founders to figure out who should be coming on board there?
Usually, from what I've seen, the startups that are at the start of stage 2, each employee will meet the CTO at least once in the interview process to do like a yes and no. Some of the time in the interview process, the CTO will have a veto power, even if everybody says yes and they say no, it's a no. And sometimes it's just, you know, just to say hi and know who you're working with. It doesn't have any decision power. But I think it's important for the CTO to know who's working in the team. And as the company grow, you know, like Google, for instance, I don't think the CTO of Google meets every new employee. But I think depending on the size, if it's feasible in the calendar, I think it's important to meet every person because that creates this connection and this loyalty from the employee to the company. If you start at a company that is, you know, 100 people, and you never get to see the CTO, you'll be like, okay, I'm in a small company, and where is this guy? Or this woman, this person? Like, I think it's good to create this human connection, because it's so hard to find talents nowadays that you really want to find the people that are passionate about the problem you're solving. And that comes, by just, like on the paper, like what the technical skills are, but the soft skills are as important.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, thank you. Is there any other questions before we keep moving here? All right, sounds good.
Cool. So let's go to the transition, and it has several names. Like it's sometimes it's called the CTO career chasm, but I like the word the transition from maker to thinker, and I think to me it's more representative. In the maker type, you like on the keyboard writing code, and as a thinker, you're like in meeting on whiteboard thinking about the strategy. So let's see what it is from the employee point of view, the transition of the company. And I think it's interesting to start there, because that will influence your style of management. So in a stage 1 company, you're usually a small team of 4 or 5, you know everyone. And everyone has a lot of impact, and you work, everything you do, you don't need, authorization. It's like you just like have this grand idea of building this amazing product, and you just do it. You don't have the time to strategize too much, and there's so many things to do and so little that has already been built that you can just go and break things. And so as an employee in a stage 1 company, you feel a lot of autonomy, a lot of freedom. And the CTO's leader, or the founder will sit right next to you if you have an office, or they'll be very accessible. You can give them a phone call or chat with them on Slack or like Discord, and they'll be very available. And the way things are done doesn't really matter in stage 1. It's more like how fast can it be done. Like if you want to use an open source library, you don't need to ask, you just use it. If you need to use a new platform, a new software, a new SaaS company, you just tell the CTO at lunch, and it's done. So what's interesting is that from the stage 1 to stage 2 is the source of the threat as an employee. As an employee in stage 1 company, the threats are external. It's like you might run out of money, it's a competition, is they building a feature faster than you, or customers are not coming to your company, or you can't hire the right person. And you're like a tight team all together against the world, trying to make something right. As the company grow and reach product market fit and increase revenue and scale, the ecosystem is evolving inside the company. Usually, you have manager being hired, processes put in place to avoid mistakes and bugs, and the technical debt is controlled by having a meeting to discuss strategy before diving into the code and start implementing things right away. And all of this has the potential to create toxic environment for an employee that is not ready for those changes, or if those changes are poorly implemented. So one big mistake among many others, for instance, is to not involve the pioneers, the person that was there since day 1, and someone come in and implement all the new rules with just arriving like last month without consulting them. I think that's a big mistake, because you want to embrace the culture of the company and make it evolve, not throw everything away and start from fresh, because you're gonna lose all those talents that were here since the beginning. So you want to involve the historical team in the decision process, and all those processes and rules are going to impact them first. So you want them to be involved, and even having brainstorming session, being like, okay, this is our goal as a company. We want to have less bugs and processes to avoid those. What do you think we should do? And when you do it that way, that involves the employees, and the rules that are being implemented, they're the ones that created them. So when you create the rules that is impacted upon, that is forced upon you, I mean, force is a strong word, but like when there's a rule that you have helped create, you are more willing to follow it because you were at the source of it. So it's usually a better strategy to involve your employees when you do big changements than imposing it on them. And what can happen if you don't do that is your key employees will feel betrayed and leave the ship. And you're gonna fail because of that, because this, like, imagine the company have like this information that it's holds within its employees. When the company is small, each employee holds a lot of the knowledge of the company. You know, if you have 4 people, they might hold 25% of the code knowledge each. So if one person fails, you're losing 1/4 of your archive that is in this company. And usually in stage 1 company, you don't have a lot of documentation. So if one of those employees leave, you might lose months of work by trying to understand what has been built, how it works. And so you want to involve your team. And another trap is for the leaders that were heavily involved in the development of the product. You know, like if you are a CTO in stage 1 and you write a lot of code, like if you're spending 4 days a week writing code with your engineers, the transition sometimes can be hard because you're going to be like, oh, it's not how I would have implemented, it's wrong, let me do it. And then you go back to being a stage 1 CTO instead of evolving into a stage 2. So you need to hire people and let them do what you hired them for. Another mistake to do is to hire a manager to manage your long-term employee and hire it externally. So if you look at the skill of your current employee, it might make sense to hire an external manager. But what you should do first is to ask your employees if they want a job. And if they do want it and you think they don't have the skills, offer them training or shadowing, or like even hire an external manager and put them as a pair, you know, like the employee will learn from the manager. Like you want them to be involved and let them know that they have a chance to be promoted. Like you don't want to make them feel like they spend, you know, the last 3 years working on this project and then someone that has no experience in the company just come and change everything. So big role is to involve the person that is being impacted by the change in the change. So just to make it a stronger statement, you know, value the talents you have. Because it's getting harder and harder to find talents, losing anybody is a really dangerous situation because you're going to spend months and thousands of dollars trying to hire and find a new person. And the employee nowadays, because there's such competition with talents, they want to work for companies that share their values. So you really have like a small pool of possible talents, even though the large quantity of talents is already small. The pool that can work for you is even smaller because you just want to focus on the employees that share the company values. So you need to really cherish the talents that are following you, and you want to involve them in the decisions that impact their life, involve them in the decision-making process. And when you hire externally, make sure to ask first internally if anybody wants a job or if it's anybody's career objective in the long term, and make sure to let them know that they have a chance to get there. Like you want to work with the career objectives so that they stay longer with you. And as a CTO stage 1 that is heavily in the code and don't have those leadership skills, that can be really hard. You need to switch your mindset to being like a leader that can help your team rather than do the same. So just a little comparison here. So in stage 1, you might be writing the code, but in stage 2, you will be thinking about processes to improve the code quality. In stage 1, you might be fixing the bug, but in stage 2, you want to think about hire the right talents that will catch those bugs. In stage 1, you will interview user and customers, and in stage 2, you're going to hire UX and UI talents. In stage 1, you're going to implement a new feature yourself, but in stage 2, you want to think about the long-term strategy. In stage 1, you're going to fix technical debt, but in stage 2, you're going to implement processes to control the technical debt. And in stage 1, you might be on your computer most of the day writing code, but in stage 2, you'll be meeting most of the day. So you can see that those are like 2 different personalities, and it can be really hard to switch from one to the other. And in some case, you know, the stage 1 leader might want to just be, you know, a software architect, for instance, in the growth of the company. And you're going to have to, as a founder, you're going to have to hire an external CTO to take up this position, and that's okay, you know. And so in stage 2, you really want to be the person that is driving that is like, so in stage 1, you were kind of like the driver of the company, implementing all the cool new features. But in stage 2, you want to be the scout that is on the road ahead, making sure there is no roadblock before the company bump into them. So it's really a different switch of perspective. Like you used to be in the boat with everyone, but now you're like walking ahead, looking for obstacles. So we're almost at the end of our time. So here's a little summary. You can take a screenshot of from the stage 1 and the stage 2. Oh, there's a typo here. I put stage 1 and stage 1, but the right side is stage 2, obviously. And so you can see that the focus is really different. Stage 1, you're writing more code, and stage 2, you're doing more strategy and hiring. So are you ready to do it? What do you think?
I love the takeoff there.
So I see that we have 8 participants. Is anybody want to jump in, have any question? We can start a discussion. If you don't agree with anything that I've said, I'll be really interested to hear any feedback, any questions.
Actually, I can give a feedback if possible.
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, I mean, that was a very good presentation. Thank you very much. I also took some screenshots. So yeah, I will compare
Awesome.
what I am doing. I think one thing that I would prefer to do is, and I want to ask your opinion, don't you think that the process, we should start thinking about the process at the beginning? Because it will be harder to apply the process when you have the product out there.
Absolutely.
So
it's hard to, it's like, you know, the transition between stage 1 and stage 2 is not like one day you're stage 1, the next day you're stage 2. It's this transition period. And so you're gonna feel things happening as they are happening. And that's when you should start, you know, thinking and planning ahead. But I didn't know how to express that, you know, with slides, because, you know, slides are like not continuous things. It's like just quantized. So, but you are completely right. There is like this transition period where like you grow from stage 1 to stage 2. And as an individual, you're going to feel these changes, and you're going to be able to acquire your skills, and you can take, you know, coaching and mentoring session to know that you're going to be a good stage 2 CTO as the company grows. So yeah, there's absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Joe.
Leo, this is Joe, and I just want to say thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed it. I loved how you broke it down in between stages and saying, this is responsibility in stage 1. This would be your future responsibility in stage 2. I realized you didn't get to stage 3 and saying, these are your going to be responsibilities for stage 3. And what you're trying to inform to the audience, and I know Jason's going to put this on replay, and other people later on is going to listen to this, that this is the growth not only of your organization, but this is the growth of you. This is what your future is going to be like. And I really liked how you broke it down. I really enjoyed it. I know Jason knows that I'm in the manufacturing, not in coding, by the way, just manufacturing in the renewable energy. And I haven't opened up my manufacturing yet. However, I spent years in the manufacturing realm. And one thing because I worked in manufacturing, both at science and medical, and documentation is very important. And as you mentioned, if we lose person X, you lose this much time in trying to get back to where person X is.
And you're losing the craftsmanship and the know-how.
Correct. And so depends on the level of person, that's the longer of the delay time. And so when I was working in my science area in manufacturing, the owner, he had me do some tasks, and I'm just when I first got to it, I was like, okay, where's the instructions? Where's the build? Where's this? And they said, good luck. And I was thinking, oh, wow, this is going to be fun. And I actually built it. And then, you know, he asked me to build it again. And I'm just thinking, I think I got lucky the first time. So what I ended up doing is next time I just wrote it out step by step, how to do it, test the power out. This is where we put in. This is the wires for, you know, for power, ground, and whatever, for all the power to go into it. And he really liked that I built, you know, how to assemble a process to it. And then he gave me the freedom of putting, you know, pictures or made me videos of it, because it's just like in science, it's just not building equipment, it's also building the samples, chemicals and everything. And all those other machines, you need to know how to process these chemicals to get some kind of results. And he really liked how I did this one project. And then he says, I want you to go through my whole company and do that. So whoever is being hired, I don't need to keep hiring doctors. If I can hire, you know, somebody stupid as you, and they're able to do it, it costs me less, you know, I'm all for it. And I said, okay. And so I did it. And so it became a pattern. So I went to another company, I did the same thing because they hired me just for that. And so now I'm starting to use the process of, I really need to have it documented. You know, this is the process, this is quality control. And so all the steps, and have everything modularized. And that will really help out I believe in two things. One, it will get the job done, but to give confidence to the person building it. But then you have to also inform the person, well, this is what I really like what you said into your presentation. Yes, today you're building this, and this is going to be that. But pretty soon, we're going to move you up the chain, and you're going to be learning this skill. And then you're going to be learning this skill, and all the way down the line, because I want you to be valuable. I want you, even though today you're doing this, pretty soon you're going to be in this group, then this bigger group and this bigger group. And so I'm going to help you move up in the company to take charge of these groups. Pretty soon you're going to be taught, today you're being taught, pretty soon you're going to be teaching other people how to do this. Because this company today is 10, tomorrow it's going to be 20, and you know, next week it'll be 50. And I like what you said about that dynamic of stage 1 to stage 2, because we need to work together as a team. And if you're not on this team or being part of this team, you know, it's my problem. It's my leadership ability and skills. And I'm going to drop the ball not only for, you know, for you, for not being a quality player, but for our company, we're not going to be a quality team. And then next, you know, we're going to have a for sale sign or a closed sign on it. So I really like that part of your presentation that you broke it down. I think I just took too much oxygen in other air, so I'm going to let somebody else speak. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. And absolutely everything you said is true. That's like, you know, the one line in one of my slides where it's like more processes. It's like all of that is behind, like it could be another hour presentation on like what kind of processes, how do you automate testing, how do you document, how do you have like a ladders that the employee can climb. Like there's so many processes we can implement and think about.
And I'm just going to jump right in. I'm sorry, people. I know somebody else get ready to jump in. One of the boss or the owner of the company, you know, a lot of people working and getting a lot of stuff done. And I think they're like really sharp people. I work with a lot of PhDs and stuff like that. And this person had a very heavy German accent. And he just said, he came to this room one day with me and he pointed at this, do you see this person in here? I said, oh yeah, that's, you know, such person. And he just sits in the room. I swear to, in my mind, I'm thinking, I swear to God, he plays games in the room all day long. And he says, this person is the most important person in this company. And I'm like, you know, sorry, Walter. I think you just been drinking too much German beer, because I think you're off your rocker on this one. And he said, this person, as you pointed out, is our customer service person. He calls the customers to figure out what they liked, what they didn't like in the product, and he reports back to the owner. And he said that is the reason why he is so important. He lets me know what the customer thinks. He lets me know not only the customers, but future customers, what they think. So we can modify our product. Because he said, Joe, if you're not in front of the wave, if you end up being on top of the wave or even behind the wave, you're going to get washed out. You always have to be in front, have the wave push you. And that's where our technology has to be in front of the wave, pushing us. And we can only meet that if we know what the customer needs are. And I like that you pointed that out in one of your slides as well. And I think this is the last time I'm going to speak, unless I have something else. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very true. And I even did a workshop on how to go from an idea to product market fit. And one important thing is to listen to your user, because I've seen entrepreneurs that were starting to hire an offshore company to build a full website, application, backend, database without doing any user research. So they were going to spend like 100 grand building a platform that they don't know that it will work or not. So I was telling them, do some research, build something simple and cheap that you can grow to be something big based on the user feedback. Don't do the other way around where you build before you know if your user wants it. Like, you need to know what they want and then build it. Anybody else? So we are not that many, so I can call out people. Sebastian, Evgeny, Chris, Steve. Anybody want to jump in on some conversation? I think the meeting was like an hour, so we have 5 minutes left. If anybody wants to have a little conversation.
Okay, so nobody has caught. I have another one. How do you feel? how do you feel about the training programs within going from stage 1 to stage 2? Should it be more hands-on or more reading or maybe more video to try to get the team saying, okay, we're here today, this is where we want to be tomorrow, and I think we need to put these functions into our plan to be more of a team. So in other words, somebody in the front office, somebody in shipping will have an idea of what everybody's doing, to, if they see something, oh, we can help this person here or this team here to help get our product out in at a safe manner and as productive to other people. I mean, what do you think about that kind of training pattern?
I think what Nekati said is really important, that this is like all the transition. It's not like we all, bracing for impact and the next day we stage 2. It's more like a slow process that will get us there. And I think the way to drive a ship like that is a company, I like the OKR KPI way of doing it, where you have like this gold star, which is like this one metric that your company all try to work on. And then to influence this metric, you have a sub metric that is managed by this subgroup of employees. And so everybody, by following their like objective, will be able to push the dial, in the right direction. And I think keeping everybody involved, for instance, using, all hands meeting where the leaders and explain where everybody is. You can even show those metrics and be like, this team is at 70%, this team is at 80%, this team is at 50% completion of their objective for this quarter. And overall, the company is at 65%. And so by doing that, you can really adjust the focus. For instance, is one of the team is like at 90% of completion, maybe one of the employee can switch team to help one that's a bit behind. Or we can have like a brainstorming session being like, okay, you are only at 50% of your objective. How can we help? Like, being like a team where everybody can contribute and help each other. I think by having measurable objective is really important, because if you start doing, the blaming game where it's like, oh, we're behind because of this team, that doesn't work. We have to be like, okay, this team is behind. How do we help? So we all forward. And I think by doing that, you also get cross knowledge. So we don't have the system where one person knows everything. There's overlap in people's knowledge. So there's like all this system of like mix and matching. You can do cut pairing. You can have objectives. You can also empower the team to choose their own metrics based on what they're focusing on and what is the company objective. So that's, once again, it's like another world talks we can do on this.
Sorry, I will now, since we are talking about metrics, I want to mention something there too. I think defining the metric is also like one of the hardest things in business. Like it is not let's increase this revenue or let's decrease the bugs.
Yeah.
Because once we do it, you realize now the goal is becoming just this metric and everything is useless. I have seen a case that may explain, like, I don't want to interrupt the conversation, but sorry for that.
No, go for it.
Because this is one of the things that I saw and I was shocked. There was a case there, like there were hundreds of bugs every week in the product, and then the goal was to reduce the number of bugs. And then the team decided to give some gifts or something like that to developers and to decrease the bugs. Okay, like who will decrease the most of the bugs? But the development team is reporting how many bugs are left to the business team. Okay, so the goal is how many bugs you will solve, but what we are reporting is how many bugs we left. So first of all, even they make say, okay, these are similar, but they are not similar. Okay, and then so when I jumped in, I saw, okay, we are solving bugs all the time. Like, what's going on? Like, why we are not decreasing the number of bugs, and why we are still reporting hundreds of bugs all the time? And then I realized that people are manipulating the numbers because they are solving the easy bugs. So it is easy to inflate the numbers. They are solving duplicate bugs. Okay, so that may seem simple, but it completely changed. And then we said, okay, what is important for us? How many bugs we left, not how many bugs we solved. These are two different metrics. And then in just a couple of weeks, the numbers started decreasing. And of course, we also applied some processes, proper processes, and then everything started changing. But I just wanted to mention, like, even this one keyword change, how many bugs left, how many bugs we have, is completely changing the game. So when we talk about metrics, like I like metrics, but I am also very trying to careful about how to use metrics. And sorry, I will say one thing more, like, because this metric thing is, I think, very important. Another important, like another example is how many big tasks were solved in the last week. Okay, this is one of the things that we discussed. Okay, it is around 1.5x of number of developers usually, and then you say, okay, everything is going fine because the number of bugs is fine. But if you see the tasks, you see they are not distributed equally for all the developers. Then you say, oh, okay, half of the tasks were implemented by only one person, so there is something going wrong. So then you have to use another metric, or you have to be careful about this. Like, I am not saying metric is wrong, but you have to think what is going on after using this metric, and this can completely change like the game. That's what I realized.
Absolutely, and thank you for sharing, because I love this topic. I actually wrote an article on emerging behaviors. So you would have simple rules that you think are perfect, but they will create those amazing complex emerging behaviors. So I recommend you can read the article, and I'd love to hear what you think about it. But I think that's an amazing example. And so there are like so many things we can unpack from this example. For instance, what I would recommend to do instead of having an objective that is about fixing bug is to do maybe 1 week per quarter where this is the objective. So that's like one thing. Another thing is usually money reward is bad. The reason is that when there is no money reward, people feel like, well, I shouldn't do it now. I just have to wait for when there'll be money reward to do it. So money reward is usually bad practice to motivate your employees. And next thing to unpack as well is, like, if you have employees that lies on their metric, maybe you need to refactor your hiring process so you can filter those people out. So there's like, this example is amazing. Like, there's so many examples, so many things to learn from it. And yeah, so Emerging behavior is amazing, and there are so many examples of emerging behaviors that are great. For instance, I worked with this company just blocking lunch from the leadership team, no meeting. Everybody was more productive the rest of the time because they could spend time eating, they could spend time with their family at lunch. Some people even started lunch and learn. You know, there's like, it seems simple rule, but it just created so many different behaviors. So yeah, I love this topic. And I could talk about it for hours. And for me, it's really interesting because I have a strong background in what's called multi-agent system in artificial intelligence, with simulation of small agents with simple codes. And because of the quantity of them, they create emerging behaviors that were not programmed originally. One of my favorite examples is the termite. So they're like little agents that works on this map. And the code is super simple. It's like when they see a piece of wood, they put it on their back. When they see another piece of wood and they have one, they just put it next to it. That's the only line of code. It's like a 13 line, you know, and you spawn them everywhere on the map and they work randomly. And if you run it long enough with enough termite, at the end, you have one stack of wood and it's perfectly circular. And it's like nowhere there's like pi, nowhere there's radius, nowhere there's circle even mentioned. And it's at the end of the day, you have one stack perfectly circular. Yeah, I love these emerging behaviors. And I believe that a city, a country, a company, all of those are like multi-agent systems, and the agents are a bit more complex than the Ceramite, but each of those have their own rules that you need to take in consideration when you add new rules to the system, and they will all behave based on those rules. And so it's really hard to predict, but there are, you know, experience and habits can let you know, like, okay, if I put this rule that I think is simple, all of that can trigger from it.
Yeah, no, great job, great questions here. And yeah, I think we've all learned a lot from you. So I'm gonna post the recording of this will go in our community page and on our YouTube channel. It'll be on the same event link. We'll also add the video there. Leo's on our platform as well, so you can message him here. And yeah, Leo, like, is there anywhere else we should continue to you know, follow along, check out your website, or, you know, what's the best way to get in touch with you from everybody that was here today?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can also follow my Medium page, and yeah, you can send me an email. I'm like online 24/7, especially during the lockdown. It's like there's no more life outside of the computer. I'm a boat. I don't even exist. But yeah, feel free to reach out. And Nikati, I'd love to hear what you think about the emerging behavior articles. This was one of my favorite to write.
I will find it and read it.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for coming out. And yeah, let us know if there's, you know, any questions or any other areas we can help with. And yeah, we'll get this posted shortly so you can go back and check it out.